Hello again everyone from Tokyo, Japan, and welcome back to Japan Vintage Camera. Today's video is going to be showing you how to operate a twin lens reflex camera. For the past 3 years or so, I've sold a really large number of these cameras in my online stores, japanvintagecamera.com, as well as my stores on Etsy and eBay. And I get a lot of questions from buyers and would-be buyers about what kind of film to use and how to operate the camera. So in this video, I hope to answer all of these questions and just to show you how it works so you can go out and shoot with one of these cameras and get good photos. In recent years, these cameras have become very popular again as people have realized what wonderful cameras they are and the amazing photos which they can capture. These TLR cameras, and when I say TLR camera, I'm going to be talking specifically about the 6x6 centimeter format camera, which uses 120 roll film, and not the other variations, the smaller ones, say the 44 size or the 35 millimeter size. Though those cameras are a little bit popular, there are not nearly as many of those, and they're not nearly as popular as the 6x6 centimeter format. Anyway, they've become popular because people have realized just how great they are. The images you can get with these cameras are simply amazing. The 6x6 format offers amazing resolution and a dynamic range, far better than what you get from 35mm film. And 35mm film is still far better than anything you can get from any digital system currently available. So despite its very simple design and primitive design, most of these cameras were made from 1960 earlier. They are capable of taking images with quality which still, by a long way, surpasses anything you can get with digital technology. So, the TLR camera is a very simple device. It's fully mechanical. It doesn't need any batteries. There are no electronics in it whatsoever. Some versions came with built-in light meters. The selenium light meter versions had no batteries. There were some CDS light meter ones which do require a battery. However, that probably amounts to maybe less than 5% of these cameras which were produced. Most were very simple cameras like this, fully mechanical. The camera is simply a rectangular box which has 2 lenses on it. It has a viewing lens and a taking lens. The viewing lens you use for composing and taking a photo, composing and focusing, and the taking lens you use to project the image onto the film inside the camera. On the top there is a focusing screen which allows you to compose and focus, and around the camera you have the different controls and dials and things which you must use to focus and make the settings. These cameras vary from maker to maker, and they feature different arrangements of the controls and such, but they're all basically the same. In this video I'll be showing you a few different things, how to load the film, how to make the settings and all that, and the differences you might find between the different cameras. The particular camera I'm using today is a Yashica Flex C camera, which is similar to quite a few cameras of the era. The camera you might have, or the camera you have might, or is probably somewhat different from this if it's not a Yashica, but I'll describe the differences that you might find between your camera and this particular camera. So we'll go ahead and take a look at the different sides here. I'm going to start on this side, on the Yashica Flex camera, and here we have a focusing dial, and we have a film winding knob, we have a film counter, we have a release button located in the middle of the knob which you must press to go from frame to frame, and down here we have a reset switch which will reset the frame counter. Not all cameras feature frame counters, and some cameras do not require a reset switch for the frame counter. They reset automatically when you open the film door. And some cameras may have the focusing knob on the opposite side. And some cameras may not have a film winding knob at all. They may have a combined winding and shutter cocking lever on one side or the other. On this side of the camera we have pretty much nothing other than the latches for the film spools and a shoe to mount a flash gun. Many TLR cameras do not have a flash gun mount. The front of the camera we always have a leaf shutter assembly which can be controlled either by levers such as we find on this Yashica Flex, or by dials, which are located on either side of the lenses. If you have a camera like this Yashica Flex, which has these levers on the bottom, you adjust the the shutter speeds by turning the lever until it lines up with the shutter speed you want to use, and the aperture is set the same way. You simply move the lever up and down until it points to the aperture you want to use. On other cameras which have the dials on them, you will usually find a window on the top which shows which shutter speed and aperture you've selected. As you turn the wheels on either side, you will see the numbers change on the top. And other cameras have the dials on the side, and they have the shutter speed and aperture actually on the dials. These cameras aren't especially common, but I do see them from time to time. This particular camera has a shutter charging lever, which is located on the side. A lot of cameras have a separate shutter charging lever. Some of them have, as I said before, the shutter charging lever, which is combined with the film winding dial. And cameras like the earlier Mamiya Flex Bs, the shutter charging lever is combined with the film winding lever. So as you wind the film, it charges the shutter. This particular camera has a shutter release button located on the bottom here, and most do have the shutter release button located in this position. Some cameras do not. Earlier Mamiya cameras have a shutter release button located on the side of the camera. Earlier Yashica and other cameras have a release lever located on the bottom. When you charge the shutter, you pull the shutter release lever on the bottom, and that releases the shutter. Some cameras like the Rolleiflex T have a button located kind of on the side and not on the front. So yeah, some of the differences you'll find. On the top here we have the focusing hood, and these always have a pop-up accessory lens, a focusing loop, which magnifies the image you see on the ground glass. You simply open this up and you focus until you get a sharp image, which you see through the focusing loop. The next step we're going to do is loading film in the camera, and this step is an important one, and the one I am most often asked about. To load the film in the camera, we have to open the film door. And on the bottom of TLR cameras, we have a dial, such as in the case of this Yashica, or sometimes a switch, which you'll find on some earlier Yashicas or even Rolleiflex cameras. So turn this until this locking lever opens and simply open the film door. To load the film in the camera, you have to have a take-up spool loaded or installed in the top position. When I sell these cameras in my online stores, I always include a take-up spool, so all you have to do is put in the film when you get the camera. If you do not have a take-up spool, you're going to have to get one before you can use the camera. You can usually find these in camera shops or whatever. They're likely that you have one for free. When they develop film from these cameras, they always have the take-up spool left over. Sometimes they'll return it to you, sometimes not, but most camera stores, especially the older ones, will have a box full of these things sitting somewhere. So, I have a load of, a roll of film here, which I will go ahead and load. So, the first thing I do is just set the camera like this. The top of these cameras is always flat, and it makes it very easy to set them like this and load the film. To load the film, I have to pull out this locking pin here. On the Yashica Flex, I can simply pull it out and turn it a little way and it will lock in place. Mamiya cameras work the same way. Other cameras may not, so you may have to hold it out while you install the film. I'll go ahead and I'll pull out the paper like so, and I want to put it in so that this part here is facing toward the front of the camera. So when I pull it over, it will go this way over the film rollers. I don't want to put it in this way. This is backwards. So I'll go ahead and slip it onto the pin there, then I'll turn this until it pops back into place. And I'll pull this out a little bit. Then I'll go ahead and set the camera on the front like so. And I will pull the paper film backing across the opening here. And I will go ahead and feed it into the take-up spool like so. And I'll hold it in place with my finger as I turn it, because I don't want it to not wind like it's doing right now. That's kind of a problem you sometimes have when you're first playing with these things. Once again, put it in there, and okay, there it goes. So, on the back of the camera, most TLR cameras, you'll have alignment marks located on either side of the film chamber. This Yashica has a pair of red marks. They can be yellow or white depending on the version of the or make of the camera you have, and some cameras won't have these at all, earlier ones. You simply just wind the film on until the arrow on the back of the paper comes up more or less in the center of the film chamber. So, I'll go ahead, and as you can see, the arrow is coming up right there. I just want to line it up like so. So it's pointing to both the line marks on either side. Then I'll go ahead and close the film door and lock it into place. And on some cameras, the film counter will be reset automatically when you open and close the door. This particular camera, I have to reset the film counter. The Yashica Flex C and the A with the mechanical counter have to be reset this way. You push in the release button in the center of the winding dial, and you pull back on this little release lever, and it will show the S in the film counter window. And you simply wind the film winding knob until the number 1 shows up in the window, and it will lock into place. Some cameras do not have mechanical film counters. They will have a window on the back which you use to count the film. When you load the film and you've wound it to where the arrow is across, you close the film door and you open the little window on the back, and you look through the red plastic and you wind the film until the number 1 is lined up in the exact center of the film window, and you are ready to go. It's loaded up to the very first frame, and you are ready to shoot the camera. Okay, so in the next spot, or the next clip, I'm going to be showing you how to use a light meter or light meter app when you are operating a TLR camera, so stay tuned. Alright, welcome to the second part of my video, and this is where I'm going to be showing you how to make the adjustments to your TLR camera using a handheld light meter or a smartphone app. So, for those of you who want to know in more detail how to use a handheld light meter, I made a video about using one a few months ago. If you go back and look at my list of videos, you'll see my light meter video. I'm going to be using the same light meter in this video. This is a Seaconic L398 light meter. There are a large number of light meters made by different companies over the years, but they all operate basically in the same way. The first thing you do when you get your light meter is you have to set the film speed or ISO speed of the light meter to match the film you have loaded in the camera. I like to use Kodak Tri-X 400 film because for me it's easy to use. I like the quality of the images I get, and I can develop it myself quite easily. So what I'll do is I'll go ahead and set the ISO setting on the meter to 400. The next thing I need to do is take a light meter reading. Now, the light I have around me is pretty much, it's well diffused because I'm in the shade of a large building and there isn't anything really bright around me. So let's say I'm going to take a photograph of this camera. What I would do is the best way to get a good accurate light meter is to take an incident reading, which is to take a reading of something which is in the same light. For example, instead of pointing the light meter at something and taking a light meter reading, I will go ahead and put it in front of my subject and take the reading. And that way I am reading the amount of light which is hitting the subject rather than what is being reflected off of it. And as I look here, I'm getting a reading. The red needle is moved to right in the middle of the 320, which is, I guess, the foot candle or light, whatever it is, reading. I will go ahead and I will move the red arrow on my light meter till it lines up with that red needle. And then I will turn this dial here until the number lines up on this black arrow with the same number. Now, if I'm using there are different systems. If I'm using this with or without a slide, I have to use a different range of numbers. But right now it seems fine. If I adjust the dial to 320, I am given a range of options here, which I can use to set my camera. So, depending on the effect you're trying to get, if you want to shoot at a wide aperture with a narrow depth of field, you would use one of the wider apertures over here on this side. If you want more depth of field and more sharpness from things close up to out in the distance in your image, you're going to use smaller apertures, which would be toward this side here. When shooting medium format, I tend to get my best results when I am shooting at smaller apertures, and I tend to shoot around, say, f8 or f11. I don't want any blur, so I'll probably use something like f8. So I'll go ahead and set the aperture on my camera till it lines up with the number 8 there. And then the light meter at f8 is recommending a shutter speed of 1/60th of a second. So I'll go ahead and set my shutter speed to 1/60th. The next thing I'll do is I will charge the shutter. Then I will, of course, open the focusing hood and loop. I will compose and focus the image and then take the photo without touching the charging lever as I did there. And I should have a well exposed image. And right away I will go ahead and I will wind to the next frame so I don't accidentally make a double exposure. The next thing I'm going to do is show you how to make the same settings using a light meter app. So I have a light meter app here, and it's just one I downloaded for free from the App Store. I'll go ahead and open the app here, and it shows kind of an image of what the camera in the phone is seeing, and giving an EV number here, a range of shutter speed and aperture settings here, and there's an ISO adjustment on the bottom. So the first thing I need to do is I need to set the film speed once again to match which is loaded in the camera, and as I said, I was using Tri-X, which is 400 speed film, so I'll go ahead and select that. And then when I'm going to take a photograph, I will simply point the camera at the phone at what I'm going to take a photograph of. So I'm taking a photograph of the light meter. It's showing an EV number of 9.7. So that will give me pretty much the same settings which I got with my handheld light meter, which would be say f8 at 1/60th of a second, or a range of different shutter speed and aperture combinations which will use the same EV reading. So quite easy to use, and I've heard some complaints about the accuracy of light meter apps on smartphones, but they've gotten more accurate in recent years, and I found them to be more than accurate enough for use with say a black and white film or negative film. If you're shooting slide film, which requires much more accurate settings for your exposure, it may not be enough, but for myself I think it's quite good. Anyway, that's it for my video showing how to operate a twin lens reflex camera and how to use a light meter or a light meter app. If you have any questions, feel free to ask in the comment section below. If you're interested in buying one of these twin lens reflex cameras, I sell these in my Etsy and eBay stores and my online store, japanvintagecamera.com. Please check the description below the video for links to my stores. I'll be posting more videos about vintage Japanese cameras and photography in Japan in the future, and also I'm working on a video on how to develop film at home. So that is, if you like film photography, the next big step in film photography is learning how to develop your own film, and I think it's a lot of fun, so I'll try to get that video up as soon as I can. Anyway, thank you very much for watching, and I hope you tune in again soon.